Well, let's get more now on this story. And joining us is Kiran Gill, Chief Executive of The Difference, an organisation working to break the link between social exclusion and school exclusion. Very good evening to you. Why shouldn't children be excluded, first of all, if they are difficult, disruptive, suck teacher time, make it hard for the others to learn? What are the arguments against it?
That's a really good question, Anna. Sorry, I think it's really important to be clear about who's currently getting excluded in England. So at the moment, you're 4 times more likely to be excluded if you come from a low-income home. And as we heard on the package there's a real overlap with children who are very vulnerable to mental health problems. You're 10 times more likely to be excluded if you've got a mental health problem. And also some of the complex, challenging issues, which are just becoming clearer, actually, over the last few years, like things like criminal exploitation or sexual exploitation of really vulnerable children, which can lead to changes in their behaviour and really mean that they're quite difficult to deal with in school. Now, it's definitely the case that if something dangerous happens in a school, often a head teacher has no choice but to have an exclusion and allow the rest of the school to stay safe. But we really believe at The Difference that we can reduce the numbers of situations in which those incidents occur that can become dangerous by recognising children's needs early and actually making sure that they get the help they need and the specialist support they need to stay in school wherever possible.
Yes, because we heard the guest there, didn't we? They're saying there's offloading because of a lack of resources, that schools are finding mechanisms, was the phrase they used, to get rid of pupils because they can't cope with them. Is it a resourcing issue? Class sizes are too big, they can't tackle those, the needs of those who are proving really tricky, in which case that's a real problem for schools, isn't it? It's not their fault.
I think we've got to be absolutely clear that no teacher wakes up in the morning and thinks, I really want to exclude a student. And no head teacher goes into their vocation thinking that gaming or exclusion is what they want to do. I'm a teacher by training, and actually I loved being in the classroom. But it was really challenging because there isn't a lot of specialist training in some of these issues that we've been talking about tonight, like how do you recognise a child who might be vulnerable to being groomed into a gang? And that's why we've developed a programme called The Difference. So what we're doing is recruiting fantastic teachers to come and get some of that specialist training, learn more about how to best support vulnerable children, get them back into learning and make sure they're getting the success they need in life. And through a 2-year programme working with excluded pupils, we create future leaders who will go back into mainstream school really upskilled with the specialist understanding they need.
And you can do that, can you, with just a teacher and a TA in a classroom of 30 or 32 pupils who all want to learn?
I think we really can make a difference to exclusion figures nationally. It's definitely the case, as I've said, that in some tragic instances, exclusion seems to be the only option for a head teacher. But actually, there are schools that are doing incredible inclusive practice where exclusions are much, much lower. So a teacher that we've been working with recently became a specialist through working in a pupil referral unit, came into his mainstream school as a deputy head teacher and dramatically cut exclusions by 2/3. So it's definitely possible within a classroom, yes, when you've got specialist training to really meet more pupils' needs, and also when your whole school is doing really effective stuff like working multi-agency with, say, social services or mental health support, and really working preventatively to identify vulnerable children and families who could do with more specialist services.
The suspicion is that there is a spike in exclusions, be they formal or informal, around GCSEs in order to protect results of schools. We had somebody on earlier this evening from Parents and Teachers for Excellence who says perhaps, in fact, the issue comes to a head with hormones and adolescence, and it happens to coincide with GCSEs. Which side of the fence are you on there?
I mean, unfortunately, with these issues, the answer is often complex. I agree with Mark Lehane that adolescence can really exacerbate some of the mental health needs that we see, but it's also undeniable that in a minority of cases there is gaming happening. But as a teacher, I think that when we are doing things that are perhaps the shortest route from A to B, it's because we don't necessarily have the specialist skills we need to get there another way round. And we heard on your clip some fantastic teachers working with vulnerable children, and those children explaining what it's like for someone to really hear you and really respond to you. So I really think that through The Difference, and we're launching in London this year, we can create more specialist teachers who can cut exclusion and actually make sure that those children sit their GCSEs in a mainstream school and get perhaps outcomes that are even better than they are currently.
And very quickly, pupil referral units, good or bad?
So many of them, absolutely fantastic. But facing a recruitment crisis, at the moment, you are 2.5 times more likely to have an unqualified teacher in that sector. So we need more great people to come and work with those children.
Kiran Gill, Chief Executive of The Difference, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.